Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is NDIFON NTUI, and on this channel I make sewing tutorials. I post new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, so if you're into this sort of thing, please make sure to check back on those days to see new content. Now in this video I'm going to show you guys how to make the jacket that you can see. I hope you guys can see it right behind me, an off-shoulder double-breasted jacket. You've seen it on the thumbnail and the burial sequence that you just watched. If you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe. Now if you're a beginner or if you're a person that wants to push up on your skill, I offer online courses. If you're interested, send a WhatsApp message send a WhatsApp message to the number that you can see on the screen. I'll be showing the demo how to make a jumpsuit for you to watch and decide if it will be convenient for you to learn online. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day. Bye. Now you're welcome. This jacket, first thing we're going to do is we're going to need to draft a bodice. Now you guys know that the jacket that we're making already is a double-breasted jacket. It's a wrap, meaning one side goes over the other like so. Okay, you can see that it has two buttons, okay, on the same level. So it's a double-breasted jacket. Now before we start drafting, in order to achieve that, before we start drafting, what I need you to do is I need you to keep a space of 4 inches. Okay, so you see this, I need you to keep a space of 4 inches from the top of the paper all the way down to the end. So you've seen that. So now we're going to draft our body starting from this point. So you see this green line, this should act as a border to where all your measurements will start from. So if you want to place your bust, for instance, and your bust is like 10, you start from here. Your bust is 40, that's 40 divided by 4, 10. You start from here and place your bust. Do you understand? From this green line. Okay, so now I will draft a regular bodice, and I'm going to start everything from here. If you do not know how I draft my bodice, go and see my video, the very first video on this channel, how to draft a bodice by me, and you'll understand everything that you see here. Okay, so what you can see here is a regular bodice. Okay, now this is a regular bodice. Now you can see some red markings. That part there represents the shoulder. This is the bust, this is the under bust, this is the waist, and this is the jacket length. Now how did I get the waist? I took the measurement from the shoulder to where the navel is, where the belly button is, and that's where I place my waist. Okay, all the measurements under here are all divided by 4. Now you'll notice there are two things about this. There are two things about the jackets that we are working on. No, there are several things. First of all, there is the wrap that we're working on here. It has a bust dart coming from under the bust, and it has a regular dart in front of here. So we have to mark all those points out, and I'll show you guys how we do the wrap as well. So now the first dart we're going to work on is the bust dart. I don't think I've made a bust dart on this channel before, but let me show you guys at last. Now how we make a bust dart is you're going to come from, if you are a person between a bust size of 32 to around 36, sometimes if you see a person that has a bust of 37 but the bust is small and the person has a wider back, you can also fall into this category. But basically between bust of 32 to 36, I use 1 inch for what I'm about to show you now. And if you have a bust of between 37 all the way up to 44, 45, you can use 2 inches. Now what number am I talking about? This number I'm talking about, you see this line here, this is the bust line. Okay, this is the bust line that we're working on. This is where the bust measurement falls. Okay, this line from here to where this line is the bust. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this point. You see, after the bust line, let me mark this in blue so that you know the difference. Now you see this bust line here, we're going to come down to where 1 inch is, and we're going to make a mark. Okay, now after we have done that, the next thing we want to do is this. I want you to place your bust point to bust point measurement so that you know where your nipple is. Now the bust point measurement for this person is 7 inches. That 7 inches is divided by 2 because we have folded the pattern. So when you're applying your bust point to bust point, or your bust span, your nipple to nipple, whatever name you're comfortable with, when you're placing the measurement here, you divide your measurement by 2. So the bust span is 7. When I'm placing it here, 3.5. So 3.5 tells me where the nipple is. Now we don't want the dart to run from under the armhole straight up to that point there. What you're going to do is you're going to come 1.5 inches. 1.25 is still fine. So you're going to come 1.5 inches after where the dart is, and you're going to make a mark after where the nipple is. So you see this round circle I have here, this place here, right around where the B is, where I made this mark. I've come 1.5 inches after there, and I'm going to draw a line from there to this point. Now you see this, the space from here to here is 1 inch because of the bust size that we're working on. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go up, okay, from this line. Now I want you to go up by half an inch and make a mark. Okay, you see that? From this line that we have here, I've made half an inch, a mark of half inch up there. You're going to make another mark of half inch down here as well. You're going to draw a line connecting these 2 points together. Now, so that your darts would balance, because of the bust size. If you are a person that if you're working with a bust size of for 37 all the way up to 45, you would use 1 inch for this point I'm showing you here. Okay, if you have a bust more than that, you can go out, still leave it at 1 inch. 1 inch will be more than okay for your bust size. But for the bust size that I'm working on now, but I'm going to only come out by half an inch. So you see this line here, where this my body curve is. From this point here, that's this line that I've just extended. Now I'm going to come out by, please, I need to pay very close attention. I'm going to come out by half an inch. That should be enough for the bust size. If your bust size falls between 32 and 36, half inch here would be more than enough. So you see this middle line, that's the first line that I drew that touched this green line here. We'll come from here, that's this line, we come out by half an inch and make a mark. Then we'll draw a line connecting here to the top. Okay, you see that I connected half inch to this point, and I'm going to connect half inch back to here. Now this is going to make sure that when I finish doing my joining my pattern back, I will not have any shortage around this point. Okay, I'm going to also, when I'm adding my allowance, I'll show you guys how we tweak everything so that everything stays like that. You're going to come 1 inch after where the bust is. So you see this bust line here, we're going to come 1 inch after there. Okay, and you're going to make, for this size, you're going to run down by 9 inches from here. Okay, so this is 9 inches here. So now what I want you to do is you're going to come 1 inch after your under bust line. Okay, and then you're going to mark the deepest point. Well, this part here, most times I really don't like drawing it, because at the end of the day I will show you guys how we hold the darts. This dart that I'm marking out, I'm not going to cut it out. I'm just showing you guys how the dart is going to behave by the time we hold it. Okay, so now you see these are the 2 darts that we are working on. So now that we have our darts out of the way, let's work on the double-breastedness, the wrap. Okay, now that we're done with all the darts, next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on the wrap, like I've said. So to do that, what we're going to do is you're going to come to the top part here. So you see the top line that we have here. I'm going to come down 4 inches. Okay, come down 4 inches and make a mark across the entire pattern. All right, and then now the next thing you're going to have to do is place the neckline depth that you are working with. Now you've seen that I've drafted the shoulder. Now whatever I did up here, the reason why I didn't mention it before is because whatever I've done up here doesn't really matter, since we're going to chop off everything. I wanted to show you guys everything and how we're going to carve out this jacket from irregular bodies. Now we've taken out 4 inches from the top, like you've seen here, the blue line that we have up here. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to come from up here. So you see this line after the half inch, you see this after here where I have the half inch line, that's where I'm taking my neckline depth from. Just know that no matter the size that your body is, once you come below 6 inches, you start showing some cleavage. Okay, so you start showing some cleavage once you come lower than 6 inches. So bear that in mind when you are doing this. So for me, I'm going to come down to 7 inches. That's where I want my wrap to cross. Okay, so 7 inches. When you've done that, I need you to make a neckline as if we intended to use the shoulder. Now if you're wondering what I use for my width from here to here, I use 3.5, in case you are wondering. Okay, so you've seen this here. This was going to cause that crisscrossness that we would have at the end of the day. Now what I want you to do, we need to start paying back all the allowances for all the excess that we've added here, for everything we've done here. Come down to the bottom right here, and I want you to place 2 inches of allowance. So you see I've drawn the line, the space between here to here is 2 inches. Now the next thing I want you to do is I want you to, first of all, we need to pay back this excess that we have here. Now this excess here is 1 whole inch, so we need to bear that in mind when we're adding our allowance. So I'm going to first come here and I'm going to draw a line. Now you see from this point now is where I'm paying back this allowance from, is where I'm paying back this excess from. You see this point now, this 1 inch here first, and mark where 1 inch is. It's going to help us when we're drawing the line that we want to roll now. Now I want you to draw a line from here. Now you see this space we just kept here, starting from here. Okay, starting from here, it will pay back for this allowance for what this dart is going to take. Now the next thing we're going to do is I want to keep 1 inch of allowance everywhere for sewing by my side. So now my regular allowance is what I'm adding. So now watch what I'm doing closely. From here, before this line here, I'm coming down 1 inch all over here. Okay, you see that? And then I'm going to come to here. You see this line that I have here now, please watch closely. It's at this point that can get a bit confusing. You see this line that I have here now, I'm going to come here and make a mark at where 1 inch is, starting from this point right here. So 1 inch. So I'm going to also make a drop. As you can see, this line is acting like a parallel line around what's happening here. Okay, and then in every other place I'll just add 1 inch of sewing allowance. That's that. Now we're going to, let me show you guys how we cut this out. Now you see that this is the pattern that we are going to be using. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the back. So I'm drafting the back like a regular back, you know, but it will not have zipper allowance, of course, because we have the opening in front. So I'm drafting the back like a regular pattern, and I'm going to cut off the 4 inches from the back. That's the only difference, but you guys will see the pattern. All right, so what we have here is the regular back bodice, bust, under bust, round waist. This is the jacket length. This is the jacket length. What we have under here is the allowance. Shoulder, I didn't do anything to it. So now what we're doing at the back is pretty basic. What we just need to do is we need to bring down here by the 4 inches as well. Make a mark here so that the back matches the front. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the bust point to bust point measurement. Okay, so remember 3.5. Let's make a mark so that you know where it is. Now what I want you to do is I want you to come from the shoulder. So you see this here, from the shoulder, that's half after that ½ inch line. I need you to come to where 7 inches is and make a mark. Then I want you to make a dart from here all the way down to 13 inches. Okay, so the length of the dart here is 13 inches from up here to here. Then I'm going to come to the under bust area, okay, and I'm going to come out by ½ inch. So ½ inch here, ½ inch here. Then because of this here, we're going to need to add 1 inch. So I'm basically paying for whatever the dart is taking before we hold the dart. Then reduce it as you go down until it becomes nothing, but don't make it so sudden. Okay, now after that's when we now add our regular allowance. So I'm basically just adding 1 inch. So when you've done that, you can now cut it out so we can start sewing everything. That's the pattern for the back, and this is the pattern for the front. Okay, so now the next thing is to cut on the fabric and to transfer the patterns to the fabric and the lining. Okay, so here I have my fabric. You can see this is my black crepe fabric. It doesn't have stretch, has very little stretch. Now for the first pattern, the back, I need you to simply make a fold and then place the back on top. Now we're cutting the back exactly the same as the pattern. We're not going to make any alterations to the fabric. That's it for the back. I'm going to do the same thing for the front. Okay, so now you can see that this is the pattern that I just cut, and I've cut the lining that is meant for it. Now you can see that the fabric and the lining have the same footprint. That's because I wanted them to, like I told you guys, the fabric and the lining will be cut exactly the same. But when you're done cutting the lining, Now this one on top is the fabric, but when you're done cutting the lining, I need you to reduce the length of the lining by 3 inches. Okay, so meaning you come to the bottom over here, and then you will chop off 3 inches clean off of the lining. You see that? Now I'm going to also repeat the same thing on the lining. I'll also cut the lining for the back pattern to be shorter as well. Remember, cut 3 inches off the lining. Okay, so now you can see this is the back pattern, and I've cut my lining for it, and it's shorter as well. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, on the wrong side of my fabric, I'm going to iron on my ST to the wrong side of my fabric. Now if you're not in Nigeria, this is woven fusible interfacing. Okay, think nylon woven fusible interfacing. It's a lightweight material that you iron to your fabric to give it some stabilization. Now just remind you guys, I'm ironing this pattern, this interfacing to the wrong side. Okay, so now the wrong side is going to be facing the fabric like so. So you can see this part here is the wrong side, is facing my interfacing. It has a fusible part, that means there's a glue on one side of it. So I'm going to simply use my iron to press my pattern so that it remains flat. Okay, so what you can see here is the back. I've covered it completely with the ST, but if you notice on the other side I don't have any. Now I'm going to do this on the fabric part of the front as well. Now mind you, I'm putting the ST on the fabric and not onto the lining. I hope that the camera is picking up the difference in the texture. Okay, so I'm only going to iron on my interfacing onto the fabric, not my cotton lining. Now yes, I'm using cotton lining. In case you're wondering type of lining I'm using, I always use cotton lining. Okay, so you can see I've also covered the front pattern with the ST as well. You can see that. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to mark out all these points where dots are in the front on both the fabric and the lining. Okay, so you see this, I'm going to lay this on top of this. You can see here, so now here is facing this point, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to make a mark here. Okay, so that I know that when I'm holding my dart is supposed to stop at this pink line that I hope you can see there. Or let me use my marker so that it really shows. So that line there. So simply just place your pattern directly on top of the fabric, and then you can make a mark at that point. You see this, I'm going to turn to the other side, and I'm going to make sure it reflects here as well at the point where the dart's supposed to start from. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a dart point for where the dart starts from. Okay, where it starts from, you can see that, and then where it stops. Okay, and also the thickest points. So you can see that. So the 3 points I have here, I've transferred them onto the fabric. So when I'm on the sewing machine, I know exactly where everything is supposed to land. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to make sure that I do the same thing on my lining. Okay, so the lining that's meant for the front, I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the lining. So now we can take this to the sewing machine and we can dart that. Okay, now you see this is the back pattern and that's the lining that's underneath there. I'm just going to simply do the same thing. Okay, so now we're on the sewing machine. The first part that we'll work on is the front. So you guys have seen what we have here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this. Okay, now you see this fold. When you fold it, because of this ½ inch that we brought out, by the time you fold it, it's going to lie perfectly. Okay, the ½ inch will lie perfectly straight along with the side that we have here. Now I'm going to simply hold the darts from this point that I marked all the way out to ½ inch, because ½ inch was what we kept. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the other darts that we have here. So you guys have seen the way I picked it up. So now you've seen what we have here. Now by the time I iron all of this flat, you'll notice that there's going to be like some fullness around the bust area. Here would go in. So now this is going to lay perfectly on her body. Next thing I'm going, so what you can see here is the lining for the parts that I just stitched. I did the same thing. I held the armhole, the darts around the bust dart, and we have the regular darts here. That's exactly the same thing what I did on this part here. Now I'll take both of them to my ironing table and press and iron them perfectly flat. When you're done ironing the front, the next dart we need to hold is that at the back. So this is easy. It's just, we're going to start from nothing, open up to ½ inch at the center. So you see this, I'm going to also iron this too, and then we're going to dart the lining. So you can see the darts that we have at the back too as well. Okay, so now I'm going to press and iron all the parts I just stitched, and I'll be back. Okay, so now I've ironed everything. You can see this is the parts that I darted. The front, I've ironed it, and the lining that's meant for it as well has been ironed. Okay, so now the next thing we'll do is we'll join the front and the back together. So you see this part here, this is the back. Okay, you can see what we have there. This is the back. So you see this, you would align two armholes together. So you see these two armholes that we have here. Okay, the two armholes for the front and the back, align it together. You've seen the black is facing the black, and then I will join the sides. Remember that we kept only 1 inch. Okay, so it's the 1 inch of allowance. I'm now going to run from the top all the way down. Now the same thing you see me doing on the fabric, we'll do the same thing on the lining as well. So when you're done with that, you would now join the other parts to the other side of the armhole. So you see the side of the armhole, we'll join the side like so. Okay, from here all the way down, we would also hold 1 inch. So now when I'm done joining it like so, when I'm done joining the armholes, you can see now we have this part here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spread and iron this flat, okay, from the beginning all the way down. I'm going to go to my ironing table, use water, and iron this here completely flat all the way down from here down. But before I do that, I'm going to join my lining the same way. So you see this is the front of the lining. I'm going to take one side of the lining, align the armholes together. Okay, so you see this is the clean side facing the clean side. Okay, rough side up here, rough side where you can see this dart is facing the machine. I'm going to join both sides 1 inch also from the top to the bottom. So after we have joined this part, okay, we will now join the other side as well. Okay, so now when you look at the front, you can see the V in the bust area and the armhole. Okay, everything is coming together. So to continue, look at the inside here. You can tell it has been ironed flat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over to the front side. Let me start from here. So the front side, So you see, this is the fabric. So let me get the lining. Now I'm going to place the fabric on the lining on the fabric, front side facing front side. You can tell this is the neat side of my lining, it's facing the neat side of my fabric. You can tell all the rough work is facing the camera, okay, it's facing up here. So that means the neat side is on the neat side. Now what I want you to do is from this part here, so you can tell this is the top before the armhole. I need you to join this part together 1/2 inch from here. If you start from here, it will lead you all the way around to the other side. Just watch how we go. Now if you notice, the lining is shorter than the fabric, okay, that's because we cut it that way. Now in order to change that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the lining, okay, keep it on the same level with the fabric, okay, keep it on the same level with the fabric, and I'll join it from here all the way down to the end of this line, to the end of the hem. 1/2 inch is what I'm holding everywhere. So now, because we've stitched that hem, you will notice that this end that we have here has now come up. You see that extra 2 inches that was laying all the way down is now folded up because of what we just did. Now I'm going to sew from here all the way down. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now to repeat the same thing on this other side, what I would do is I'll come to the top once again, around where the armhole is. You see this, I'm going to align the fabric and the lining together, and I'll stitch 1/2 inch until the end. And then the other place we'll need to stitch is here. So you see, this is the back here. We'll need to join the fabric and the lining together at the back, 1/2 inch, just so across the top. Now please mind you, I have not touched the armhole throughout this entire process. So you see, now that is that. Now I'll turn everything inside out and iron everything, and then the next step is to work on the sleeves, but I'll show you guys where you're supposed to place the buttonholes too. But basically what is left here is just the sleeve. So before we turn everything inside out, remember to notch the angles, okay? Now when I say angles, I'm talking about these parts around here. So you see, around where you have this part here, this is an angle, around the top, okay? After that, we can now turn everything inside out. Alright, so you guys can see what we have done so far. You can see, I know it's a lot of black, but you can see this is the inside. Alright, this is the inside. So now the next thing we have to do is we have to cut the sleeves, okay? We've not even drafted the sleeve, and that's for a reason. I wanted to piece everything together before I drafted the sleeve. So first thing I want you to do is, on your pattern paper, I want you to draw a line of 1/2 inch, okay? I want you to draw a line 1/2 inch at the top. What I need you to do is this. I need you to bring your armhole, okay? You see this here? You see this armhole that we have here, okay? This part that we have here. I need you to just place it, okay? Now keep enough space. You can see under here I've kept like 7 inches of allowance. I don't need that much, but just keep all of that, okay, in case you need allowance. Now you see this armhole here. Now look at where the paper is starting from here to where I've placed this armhole is 7 inches, but we will not use all of that, but just see what I'm doing. So at 7 inches I keep the armhole like this, and then I'm going to simply trace the armhole, okay? I'm going to simply trace the armhole. When I get to the end, I would stop. You see that? So now we have traced the armhole. We've made the armhole as far as I'm concerned. Now the next thing we need to know is, how big does this sleeve have to be? Now one thing that you guys must know is how many do we need to complete the off shoulder? You've seen the jacket. The jacket is an off shoulder jacket. Okay, the jacket doesn't have a shoulder. As you can see, we chopped off the shoulder when we were drafting. Now after we chopped off the shoulder, how many is the off shoulder? Now the off shoulder that we are working with is 38 inches. Okay, 38 inches. So how much have we taken out? You know, this part here is going to be part of the off shoulder, and also the part 2 across the front will be part of the off shoulder. So how much shoulder do we have left after all we have done? You need to measure it. So now what you're going to do is this. You see this off shoulder that we are working with now? We're going to come ½ inch after the beginning. See this, there's a little space before where my tape is. I'm going to measure. Okay, so here I have 13.5. okay, now ½ inch after here, and I stop measuring ½ inch before the very end. Okay, I stop measuring ½ inch for the very end. So if I keep ½ inch here and ½ inch here that we consume for sewing, in between I have 13.5. so I'll multiply that 13.5 by 2. Why is it by 2? That's because we have here is 13.5 and here is 13.5. Now I know that there's a V in between it, but regardless, you would have it at the back of your mind that that V does not matter, and here to here, so 13.5. 13.5 times 2, which is 1, 2, is 27. Okay, so 27 is what we have consumed so far. If we subtract 27 from the actual off shoulder measurements that we took, which is 38, it's going to leave us with 11, meaning that we need 5.5 here and 5.5 here to complete the off shoulder. I hope that is clear. If you don't know how to take off shoulder measurement, watch my video on how to draft an off shoulder strap on my channel. You would see how to take the off shoulder measurements. So now, because we need 11, what we're going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to place, instead of half of 5.5, because now everything is on the fold, half of 5.5 would have been 2.5, but now I'm going to add half an inch because of sewing allowance. Okay, because I'm going to need half an inch for sewing allowance, and I'm going to make a mark here. Okay, now this mark is 3.7. Okay, so now I've made a mark. So where this line was, that's the 3 inches. It was supposed to be 2.5 because of we need 5.5 to complete the off shoulder. So I kept 3 inches, just approximated to 3 inches. So I just drew a line to draw my actual sleeve. Now the next thing we're going to place is her bicep measurements. Okay, now the bicep measurements we're working with is 10.5. 10.5 divided by 2 is going to give us 5.25. okay, so I'm going to place 5.25 inside here, and let's see what we have. 5.25. I'm going to make a mark at 5.25. I'm going to extend here by ½ an inch. Okay, and then we're going to take the sleeve length. Now the sleeve length we're working with is 20 sorry, is 23, but remember that we've subtracted 4 inches when we're drafting, so we'll do the same thing. We'll subtract 4 inches here. Look at, I'm placing the 4 inch. I'm placing the 4 inch on this line here. Okay, and then I'm going to make a mark at what we have left. That's 23 for the sleeve length. Draw a line from here to here, and then I'm going to place her cuff measurement. Okay, now the measurement around the wrist, so that her wrist can pass, was 9 inches. 9 divided by 2, 4.5. So make a mark at 4.5 here, and then I'm going to draw a line from the top to this point. Okay, so when you've done this, we can now cut it out. But please, before you cut it out, add 2 inches here like we did on the fabric for sewing allowance. You guys already know that we'll reduce the length on the lining when we are transferring all of this to fabric. So now let me show you guys how we cut this out. So next thing, I'm going to transfer this exact pattern onto the fabric. I'm going to cut 2 levels of the fabric, okay, and I'm going to cut the lining. I'll reduce the length of the lining by 3 inches, just like what I did to the body. Also, I would cover the fabric with stay. All right. Okay, so you can see this is the sleeve. This is just one sleeve. Whatever I do to this sleeve, make sure you do on the other sleeve. So you can see this pattern fits right on top. Okay, and I've cut the lining. Look at the lining is shorter than the fabric, and I've ironed my soft gum stay on my stay on the lining. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go and sew half an inch. So this is the armhole part, so I want you to sew half an inch down here, and also sew half an inch from here to the end too on the sleeve. Okay, so now the next thing we want to do is, after I joined here and I spread and ironed it, I need you to join the end together. So you see this is the rough side that you have over here. Over here, inside here, the neat part. So you're going to open up the body as well, and you're going to join the neat part facing the neat part, and we'll join them together. Now, because of the way the cut is, by the time we join the two of them, it should turn around in a circle and would end up right where we started. Now, after you have done that, the next thing we're going to do is you're going to turn everything to the right side. Okay, so simply plant this one. Okay, now you see this edge here, this edge is still rough. This is not what we want. So what I want you to do is, you see this edge that we have here like this, I want you to separate them, turn them inside, and then we'll join them like so. Okay, now it may be a bit twisted. Please make sure you just move your fingers and arrange everything exactly as you just saw, and everything will be fine. Now I'm going to join those two pieces together, half an inch across. By the time we turn everything back, you would see that the only place that we have that is rough, you can see that the only place that we have that is rough is this top part here, and you can see that we have fabric and we have lining. Now this part here is supposed to sit perfectly with the armhole that was also left rough. So let me get the jacket so that we can fit the armholes, the sleeve to the armhole. So here you can see I have fixed the first sleeve to the other side of the armhole. This is the only part that we have left. Okay, now I need you to turn everything inside out. Now we're inside again. Now the next thing I want you to do is, I want you to take the front of the fabric. You see this part here? This is the front of the fabric, and align it with the front of the fabric. So underneath here, you can also see the front of the fabric. Here, this is the neat part. Look at the rough part underneath. So put the neat side facing the neat side, and now we would simply sew around. Okay, so by the time we go around, you should find yourself back at this spot. Now we've turned everything to the inside. The next thing we have to do is we have to look for how to escape. Now please, whatever I've done to this sleeve, make sure you repeat the same thing on the other sleeve. That's the sleeve I've fixed already. It's basically the same method I used for both. Now when you're done, you come to one of the sides that you have here. We have to loosen a way that we're going to use to escape, but we'll seal it back by the time we turn to the front. Now you see, this is the hole that we opened. You can see all the sewing is still facing inside, so I need to just pick it up like so, and then we're going to seal it shut. Now I'm going to take this over to my ironing table. I'm going to press and iron all the sides flat. Okay, so now when you are done with ironing everything and placing everything, sealing everything, the next thing we have to do is to mark out where your buttonholes would be. I hope you can hear me. It's raining crazy here. So now where are the buttonholes going to be? Now you're going to need two buttonholes. Okay, so you're going to need one. You're going to need one to be right before your dart. Okay, and you're going to need one at this point here. All right, so now the first one is going to be at the very top. So there's going to be a buttonhole here, and there's going to be a buttonhole here, half inch before where you have the darts. Now after that, the next buttonhole that you should have should sit 5 inches, okay, from your dart. So from where the dart starts from, you count 5 inches, and you place the next buttonhole at that point right there. Okay, and then you place a buttonhole right opposite it. Okay, so you see this, so 1 2 3 4. So I'm going to make 4 buttonholes on top of here, and right underneath those buttonholes I'm going to install buttons. Okay, so here you can see I have installed the buttons that are supposed to be in front, and like I said, look at that, those are real buttonholes. There are buttons securing this other part here as well, so you can see that. Okay, so excuse me. Okay, so that's going to go with that, and here is going to go with here. And if you have gotten to this level, then you've come to the end of the video and you're through with your jackets. Okay, so that is how you make that stylish jacket, off-shoulder jacket. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.